Hello everyone, Jared here, and in today's video, we're going to be continuing our trip in Xi'an. And this time we're going to be traveling to different parts of the inner city that we have not been to yet, starting with the old city wall.
This is what I like about Xi'an. You have all these buildings with older style architecture that you would want to see if you come to China, but you hardly see anywhere else. It's pretty much only here inside the center of the walled city in Xi'an.
This building that you see before you being among one of my favorites that I've seen in China. I don't know anything about this building, unfortunately, but anyways, after walking behind that building, we tried looking for a path up onto the city wall, and this turned out to be harder than we initially thought it would be. And instead, we ended up at this park, right outside of the gate, which stretches the entire perimeter of the old city wall. And after taking a few shots and wandering around some more, we eventually learned that the way up onto the wall is by going through an underpass. It took us a little while to find it, and this underpass happened to be right next to where we initially filmed the first clip for this video. You pay this 75 yuan, or 10 US dollars, in order to gain access to the old city wall. And after a quick security check, we went on through the gate doors and up onto the city wall. The courtyard is absolutely massive and a place where they regularly hold performances involving people dressed up in costumes, but the ones you see here are just girls wearing traditional clothing, which is increasingly becoming a hobby around China. Down below the wall doesn't have the best view, but the real view doesn't begin until you get up on top of the wall, so I hurried on up top.
So here I am on top of the city wall in Xi'an. Let's go take a look.
As soon as you get on top of the old city wall, you immediately become filled with the desire to take pictures and videos of what you see. I wanted to do a selfie but couldn't find a great position to do so. Whether what you want to do is take pictures of old historic artifacts, or of silly mascots like these, maybe even take some selfies while dressed in traditional Chinese clothes, it's unquestionable that the city wall has a great backdrop for any kind of video or pictures that you would like to shoot. And while I was focused more on shooting the inside of the wall and ancient structures, my father instead wanted to take videos of what he could see outside of the old city wall. And really, I can't think that you can go wrong either way. I only wish that the weather would have been better, and that the air quality would have been a little cleaner, so that I could have done even better shots while I was here. After a little bit, we decided to move on from this beginning section of the old city wall, and moved on to the first segment where there were no towers, which was exceedingly crowded. But at least you're able to look off of both sides at the same time, and enjoy the view from above. But hey, maybe all this walking will get you a little tired over time. Well, if that's you, then they have other modes of transportation available for you, starting with this golf cart-like vehicle. I was a little surprised to see something like this up here, but it's good to know that at least for this one attraction, that there's easy access for people who are maybe disabled or otherwise that would have a hard time seeing the majority of the wall without it. But as you can see, the car is not the only option. There are plenty of bicycles that you can rent from this service right here, and if you're hungry, then you can always have a snack, maybe get a drink such as a coffee, or maybe buy some merchandise, of which there are multiple options available. But please don't smoke when you're in this area. Also, if you really want to try a bike, you can always try this two-person bike, but either way, it may take you a long time to go around the whole wall if you choose to do so. If we'd had the time and the stamina, I would have really liked to go around the wall on one of these bikes. Be prepared for a long walk otherwise, because you're not allowed to sit on the wall.
The wall goes on for miles around the inner city. So you have multiple options for how you want to go around. You can either go ahead and just walk it, it'll take you a lot longer, or you can go ahead and ride a bike. Maybe you want to sit in one of these vehicles that you can see here. That's always an option too.
There are a few benches you can sit at along the way, but what you should be most careful about is staying out of the way of bicyclists. I can't tell you how many times I was almost run over by people on bikes on top of the wall. Anyways, you don't have to go walking the full distance of the wall. We only ended up walking a small section and taking videos off of both sides. And in particular, we enjoyed seeing the contrast between the new city that you see through this window, or rather, in this gap in the fortifications, Whereas when I'm approaching the other side of the wall, you can see that the buildings are of a different style and look more traditional. Some which may have been constructed more recently but look like they have an old style, whereas others, maybe they've been here for centuries. Xi'an is one of only a few cities in China where you're able to see such a division between the old and the new. And as you can see, it's a great place to pretend what it must have been like to live in other times and dress up in traditional outfits, if you want to do so. For some reason though, I only ever see women doing this. Whatever you choose to do here on the city wall, it'll most certainly be worth it.
There's a lot still to do in Xi'an. Coming on this wall is only the beginning.
We eventually had enough of the city wall and went to explore some nearby streets. But the wall was certainly the highlight of that day in Xi'an.
Hello everyone, Jared here, and today I'm coming to you from Xi'an, right outside the Big Goose Pagoda. It's rather bright outside, and I think it's going to be as much as 95 degrees here today. So a very hot day in Xi'an. You can see the Big Goose Pagoda right behind me, once I move out of the way there. And anyways, today it's just going to be me instead of with my dad because he's feeling sick. Let's go ahead and take a look. Since my dad's not here, I don't have anything I can do from a distance. He got whatever I had. Or maybe he's just starting. Or maybe he's lucky and it's just going to be a little cold. But I'm mostly feeling better finally today. It's been over a week since I started being sick. And now I'm finally able to go up, walk around, and do things.
And I enjoyed walking around this area, looking at the statues and various monuments that were constructed here within the last number of years, even if it didn't really fit in with the overall aesthetic.
Your ancient Chinese Burger King right over there.
What I found particularly interesting was that most people appeared to be gathered around this water fountain area, instead of trying to head towards the pagoda.
I'm pretty sure that the last time I was here in Xi'an, a decade ago, none of this was here. They were all going to start making this, but you can see right up that way, where all the water leads up, is the Big Goose Pagoda. See how much I can zoom in on that.
It was certainly nice to see the pagoda from a different angle than when I'd come here over a decade ago. And although I was closer then, it was really hazy and I couldn't see very much. I wish I had more footage of my old days traveling around Xi'an and going to these places, but unfortunately that's all I have to show. After shooting a bit of footage around the Big Goose Pagoda, I noticed that crowds were beginning to swell around the water fountain area. And while the water show is impressive during the daytime, and absolutely massive, I think it would have been a better idea to come to see this at night. Because as you'll see in a little bit, my father went to another water show later that same evening, when he started to feel better. And the colors added to that show look much better. I'll just have to come back here at some time at night if I ever get the chance to come back to Xi'an. And it wasn't too long before I decided it was time to move along the street, taking in the sights of the lanterns hanging above the streets, over to the next attraction that I wanted to see in Xi'an, the Shanxi Provincial Museum. But just like Nanjing, something happened here that I wasn't expecting. And perhaps I should have thought better about planning to come here before I actually did. I didn't make any reservations, I didn't buy any tickets in advance, I just thought I could show up. And so when I got there, there were already quite a few people in line ahead.
So if you go to a museum in China that you know is a very big museum, check to see if you need tickets in advance. Oh, here's something helpful. You have instructions on how to get the reservations for the tickets online. You just go ahead and use their app, but the steps are in Chinese. So if you do not understand Chinese, then this may not be very simple for you. I guess this is as close as I'm getting to the artifacts in the museum.
And so I left the museum area since I wasn't going to wait in this really long line, and headed back to the hotel to change out of these clothes and get ready for what I would be doing later the same day.
Alright, just got to Sajinqiao Station to meet up with my friend, who I haven't seen in many years since I was a student at university.
After leaving the subway exit, he handed me a gift of masks upon seeing me, because he'd heard that I'd been sick during the trip so far.
Are you saying I'm getting on the back of that thing? Okay.
And together we rode off to a nearby store that specializes in selling various medicinal products, and the ones that he gathered for me that you see here are various fruits that you're supposed to put in whatever you drink, and although I insisted on paying for them, he refused to let me do it. And this would continue to be the pattern for various other things that we did the rest of the day, such as when we left to go to this place, a store that specializes in various yogurt products. Of particular interest to both of us were the different flavors of rolled ice cream. This was the first time I'd actually had any kind of rolled ice cream before. We opted for strawberry ice cream, and so they proceeded to mix the strawberries and yogurt together before mashing them up, pushing it all together, and then mashing it up again until you couldn't distinguish between where the strawberries ended and the ice cream began. After a couple of minutes, the ice cream would be spread out, allowed to cook, I think, and then rolled up with the scraper, before being placed in the container and given to us to eat. There were also a few toppings off to the side for us to put on if we wanted to. And of course, it was good. Who doesn't like ice cream? And we also had some of this Shimu yogurt as a drink while we went to our next restaurant together. A Chinese barbecue restaurant, or Xi'an restaurant, which is meat on sticks. We ordered a couple of fruit drinks and enjoyed our ice cream before our meal came. And I also used this opportunity to ask my friend some questions that I thought would be interesting for people back home.
I do have some questions to ask you.
Okay.
I know a lot of people are curious about Chinese people's perspectives on America. What did you like most from all of the years that you spent there?
What I like the most? Can I say marijuana? Okay. I would say the people, the culture, the sense of value, independence, freedom, all those qualities, and how much people fight for it.
Are you saying those aren't as good here, or are they?
I think American people are doing a much better job defending those qualities, like enforcing those qualities better than where I grew up.
Do you think China's getting better in those ways, though?
No. China is definitely getting better on making money, buying a big house, and but the inner needs, the needs for their mind and soul are still like little.
What do you think that you dislike the most about America?
How big and empty. Like everything's far away. You have to drive 30 minutes to get something. Yeah, very inconvenient. And yeah, you don't get much options.
Yeah. All right. So here we go.
And we dug in, thoroughly enjoying the chuan as we ate. And while we started with lamb, that wasn't enough. So we also ended up getting more skewers with beef, before heading outside to go somewhere else.
We just finished our chuan, and now we're going to go inside this park that I happened to notice on the way back.
And so I followed my friend into the park, and took in the sights of what people were doing at various points inside of the park. There are a lot of elderly who are using the play equipment and exercise equipment that's free and available for anyone in the parks to use it. Perhaps the most interesting thing that I saw was this man here, who was dipping his brush into a bucket of water and then drawing calligraphy on the pavement. The only other place where I'd seen people do this was when I was living in Beijing, and when I'd go to tourist attractions, such as the Old Summer Palace. And this guy was clearly dedicated to his craft, because he had apparently been practicing the calligraphy all over the place. Of course, we also saw some of the more usual sights in the Chinese park, such as old men sitting together with their shirts rolled up, as well as small lakes that offer boat services if you want to be able to go out onto the lake. But hey, maybe if you want to get out in the sun, you can always sit down underneath these traditional overhangs and enjoy the scenery while inside the park.
So, what do you think is the best part about living in Xi'an? Everything is cheap.
Xi'an got a good 性价比, the money to life quality ratio.
And you can really tell that the quality of life in Xi'an, as well as China as a whole, has really improved vastly over the past decade even since the last time I was here. Whatever kind of hobby you have, even if it's something like rollerblading or roller skating, you probably have a means to do it in major cities such as Xi'an. Honestly, if you're not trying to stir up the pot too much politically, then you can probably live a relatively carefree life and enjoy materialism that you wouldn't have been able to have previously for most generations of the past in China. But as my friend said, there's still something that's lacking for the people internally that I think can only be reached through some other form of great social change. Anyways, it wasn't just the park that me and my friend went to. We also walked around various shopping streets in downtown Xi'an and even headed to this arcade that you see here, where I proceeded to take pictures with various characters from video games that maybe some of you know. There are so many options for what you can do in this city, particularly if you want to go around buying merchandise and clothing from the hundreds of stores that are available downtown. But perhaps my favorite sight in the entire city in Xi'an was this guy, dressed up in a pig costume, holding up a sign in the hopes of bringing in customers. Unfortunately, we'd already eaten, or I would have gone there in a heartbeat. And while me and my friend were walking around at all of these various shopping areas, my father was finally starting to feel better, and in the late afternoon to early evening, he decided to walk outside and take some videos of nearby streets. And as it grew dark, he went back to the center of the city to take footage of both the bell tower and the drum tower at night. And both really are sights that are worth seeing. However, one thing happened at this time that neither of us had planned. I was coming back with my friend on his scooter at the same time that my father was filming this. So by pure coincidence and luck, you can see me riding by on the back of my friend's scooter in this clip, if you have a big enough screen to see it. And while I was dropped off back at the hotel, I didn't know where my father was. So I just assumed he was wandering around and doing what he was in fact doing, which was taking videos of this downtown area since we had not done it at night yet. And after going over to the bell tower, my father walked over to the drum tower, before eventually stopping by this pool area where the light show that I mentioned earlier on in the video began. And as you can see in this video, the water show here, although a lot smaller, is certainly much more colorful than the one that I saw over at the Big Goose Pagoda. Anyways, once that show ended, my father proceeded to head back in the direction of the hotel. And that was pretty much it for our trip in Xi'an. And now, it's time for me to summarize my second time coming to Xi'an. The city has certainly developed in a lot of positive ways since the last time I was here, and although I wasn't able to travel to certain places I'd been in the past, such as Emperor Qin's tomb as well as the terracotta soldiers, I highly recommend anyone, if it is their first time to go to Xi'an, to definitely go to see the terracotta warriors. And maybe because I didn't do that this time, I was able to do some things that were a little more unique, a little more special and personal for me. Going around the city and being with my friend who happens to be a local is something that most people who come here won't be able to experience for themselves. I will have a lot of fond memories from my time spent in Xi'an, probably more so than most of the other places that we end up going on this trip. And that's because of a combination of all the factors I've already talked about before.
Anyways, that's it for this trip in Xi'an. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And next time, I'll be seeing you from Chengdu.
Thank you again for watching this video. If you liked it, please give a thumbs up and also comment down below what you thought about the video. Also, please subscribe to the channel and share this channel with others so that my channel can continue to grow. And hopefully I'll see you next time.